Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Pete Wright, and I am here with Megan Strand.
Hello, everyone.
And Dane Christensen.
Hello there.
And we are The Naked Marketers. Welcome back. Another week, another show. I'm so excited to be with you people again. I really super missed doing a show last week.
I did too.
It was terrible.
I didn't like it.
No, it's very uncomfortable.
This podcast that we've started is really, I'm very excited. I think not only have we had some great guests and some great shows to date, but I know in the discussions that we've had that we've got some great people coming up over the next month or two, and it's going to get nothing but better.
I totally agree. I had this awesome conversation today, and I talk about this a little bit later in our interview too. We with a photographer in town who is quite talented, and we're sitting there talking, and she says, "You know, I've been listening to The Naked Marketers," and I looked back in shock and awe. And she said, and she had some very nice things to say about you people. She said it was a good show, and that she gets very frustrated with podcasts that she finds herself just getting addicted to, and then they go dark. And that happens a lot with podcasts. And I can certainly say with my own experience starting other shows that when there isn't just that right energy in those first couple of episodes, when you don't get the right guests, when it just doesn't come together, it's pretty easy to let it fall. But this, I feel like we've got a lineup of people who are really interesting to talk to, and I hope folks stick around to hear more of it.
Yes, please do, because we are very excited. And there's the fun part about it is that there's constantly, as I go through my week, and I know this is the same true for you two as well, but as I go through my week, there's constantly things that I say, oh, I really want to talk about that on the podcast. So there's just a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. And so with that, I think we should get started. It's a long show. We've got a long interview coming up with one of our new media heroes.
But it's not going to feel like a long show.
No, it doesn't feel. It feels like it's a show in a microwave. You'll get nearly a day worth of rich content in about an hour.
Like 5 minutes.
All right. With that, where should we start? Let's start with stories of the week. So Viacom is in this big lawsuit with YouTube because they accuse YouTube of not policing their network appropriately for copywritten content, for content that is up on YouTube as in violation of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. The YouTube stance is, we do our best, and when we get a cease and desist, when a company says we own this information, we take the content down because but otherwise we're what's called a safe harbor institution, and so anything that's put up on our network we don't take responsibility for because we just host the network. It's like the telephone companies, and that's just right. Sort of a standard. Well, it came out on March 18th that Viacom, it turns out, while they were busy suing and submitting all these cease and desists to YouTube to take down all their copywriting content, there is now evidence that employees of Viacom were secretly uploading copywritten content to YouTube, which they would then go sue about later. And they were using it because, my take on it
doesn't sound incriminating.
Well, seriously, who wouldn't do this? The biggest video site on the internet with video clips from all of your competitors. You don't want to be there? You don't want to be in front of all those eyes?
Can I just say here, when you're in hospitality, right, you're thinking to yourself, so hospitality, entertainment industry, you're thinking, how can I charge for something? What can I charge for? I want to charge for, I've got this captive audience and I want to make as much money as possible. Okay, that's part of it, right? So you can charge for, the internet connection or for the DVDs. Or are there things that rather than charge and make that incremental dollar, I'm going to make more money on the back end by getting the word out, by getting people access to something, by promoting, by having people, promote for me. To me, it's the same thing with digital content. And why in the world Sony was holding out? They don't like, and I know it's a little bit different topic, but they didn't like the payment or the pay per video play, right, for music videos.
Right.
So certain artists not only would you not be able to see their officially produced video on YouTube, but fully annoying if somebody uploads the song for their home video, their video gets shut out or the music goes away, the soundtrack goes away, which is crazy. So I just did a real quick one from the cruise, and did a Black Eyed Peas song on there, which would not be legal in Germany apparently, but it's a Sony Music one, so not that long ago it would have not been possible to upload that song. Well, if you watch my little 2-minute video, for most of the time that you're watching it, you have an ad there, click here to download and purchase and pay for this song. Mm-hmm. Like, isn't that worth more money to Sony? And in the case you're bringing up Viacom, to get this content out there and have people get the word out and promote the show or promote parts of the show. It's not all about protect and manage and hold back and restrict and control, the way people watch it, rather than make it available, for what's convenient to them.
They just don't get that. It's that forces them to think outside their model, and they don't like doing that because it's been so profitable for all these years. And I mean, this is just a prime example of how they don't get it. And stuff like this really kind of makes me cranky, I have to say. I agree with you, Peter. Like, who wouldn't do that? But at the same time, it's annoying.
Well, it is annoying.
It's really annoying, and like, really use your brain for something else other than litigation.
Well,
Right.
That's the part that's so frustrating, and it really highlights the sort of backwardness of both the copyright system, frankly, in this country, and the litigation system in this country, and the process you have to go through to protect your own copyrights. Like, once you decide you want to secretly post your videos on the internet, if you own those copyrights, you have to protect them vigorously or risk losing them. It's like a trademark, and there is an issue there that prevents companies who otherwise may get it in the back room, kind of water cooler conversations. There are people who are working in the industry who are diligent and who understand that things are changing and who want to change, but can't quite figure out what the new model is that works. And it takes a lot of time. And in the process, you get these kinds of dumb decisions that are being executed rather than working collaboratively and progressively to change the way these things work and change the way the copyright system works. It's also protectivist that it gets in the way of progress.
So something really bad happened to the music industry as a result of Napster, and it's exactly what Megan just said. They went from, okay, let's see what happens here. Let's sort of, before Napster, like, well, we're not quite sure, and they still, had this very predictable model of, making sure every CD, regardless of quality, had a certain price tag to it, or whatever. And then Napster, and the response was litigation. Pure. I mean, the RIAA was. It was like throw public relations out the window, sue 12-year-old girls, and college students and grandma if they've shared 20 tracks. It was litigation, like litigation or bust. And exactly to your point, Peter, it was sort of feeding into what I think is very problematic about the U.S. sort of copyright approach is protect, because if you don't, what can happen? I heard a guy in NPR, and so this was like a year ago, and now I can't remember the guy's name in the book or whatever, but he had done a whole background on the history of copyright in the U.S. And talked about how, like, what a problem it is that there was an extension, I guess, a few years ago of these sort of legacy copyrights, like, for instance, Walt Disney holding on to Mickey Mouse, some things like that, or some other, where the family name kind of inherits. I know there's still, I think the Winnie the Pooh case is still in the courts. Like, the daughter and former wife of A.A. Milne are trying to sue Disney for every dollar they've ever made on Winnie the Pooh. And it's really, he said, back at the origination of copyrights, and they were really only supposed to last a few years. And the thinking about it was, let's not go overboard with this, because we need competition and we need innovation. And if we do too much protecting, like legacy protection, we'll reduce both innovation and competition. So,
I think that's a really good point. I think the thing that kind of noodles at me about this whole thing, and I know we're kind of rat-holing, so we can move on, but the thing that gets in the way is once you go down the road of litigation, it stifles your own creativity too, right? It's not just that you're stifling the industry, because we know you're doing that, but you are also letting that mindset get in the way of you being able to create the next Mickey Mouse. Either way, none of that really raises any sort of comparison to Holy Saturday.
Yeah, exciting day.
Oh, it's a big day.
Anybody pre-ordered?
Are you kidding?
Are you kidding? Really? Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Who pre-ordered of the three of us?
Dane, did
It's
you?
I
not
will
me.
now for the 3GS, also and for more clients.
Oh.
So those things.
I did pre-order, and I'll tell you why I justified that I pre-ordered. Because the day of the announcement back in January, within a half hour of the press release hitting the news sources online, I got a call from 2 clients saying, "How do we get our content on the iPhone or on the iPad?" And I said, "Okay, good. I can order an iPad because of course I'll need one to test."
Ooh, good idea.
I know,
Smart.
right? That was smart.
You're
and
very smart.
So
and
it is coming
nobody
on
call
Sunday.
Peter on Saturday.
Yeah, don't.
Don't
Talk
text
to
him.
Rafa.
Don't Skype him.
I've got
He's been
my
asked
office
not to
is right by my front door of my house, and I've actually taken the screen off my front door so that I don't even have to walk around the hall to get the UPS.
I hear Steve Wozniak is going to camp out. For
He
fun.
is at the Palo Alto store for he goes out for fun. He's going to buy 2.
Oh, I heard 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about it other than to acknowledge that it is Holy Saturday. The iPad is coming out, and by Sunday, the entire universe will have changed it on its orbit. So
Right.
Well,
I think the
we're
day
gonna-
will have been shortened or lengthened.
right.
We're going to charge you, Peter, with a full report.
You will have a full report next week.
Indeed.
I'm very, very excited about it. And I think also we're going to get some folks in the publishing industry to come on and talk to us about, just briefly, about, the fallout of the iPad. There's a Smashwords is a great service, and it allows you to, they've announced a service where if you, they allow you to publish your ebook. Your book is an ebook. And they've added a Premier catalog for free where you can, as long as you have the up to snuff copyright statement and book art, you can actually get your book into the iBook store, your own ebook, self-published for free,
Nice.
and they just take a percentage of the sale.
Wow.
And
That's great.
in terms of an enabling technology to get authors read. And it's not just the iPad. I mean, Smashwords, they announced that they'll get you into the Kindle store, they'll get you into the iPad store, they'll get you everywhere. But that's a big deal that people are talking about, kind of the next plateau of self-publishing and enabling that kind of content creation.
And just a quick point here, because we are moving on, but
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the whole thing about, what we're not talking about right now is amazing new technology that's, this new piece of equipment that's doing things we've never heard of before, per se. It's
Right.
the applications. It's the way it's being used. Those are the things that really will change. I mean, it's obviously it needs to be facilitated by this innovation, but it's not like really new stuff. It's kind of an oversized, iPod Touch more or less, but that does change everything
That's right.
in terms of the applications.
It's a gateway drug, I mean, it's the enabler, and it's not just the enabler for Apple, right? I think people get lost in the Apple fanboyism. I'm certainly a fan, but that's not why I'm excited about this, from the perspective of the industry. I think it's in terms of self-publishing and for businesses to get their ebooks and their content out in a substantive way. On many platforms, what the iPad has done is created a fervor around these sorts of devices.
Yeah, it's not up to Apple now
No.
to make all kinds of amazing things happen.
No,
it's
frankly,
really
it's up to
everybody.
Android. It's up to Google. It's up to It's not really up to Nokia anymore. I don't really think about them, but I mean, it's anyway. So it's
that's
very
a perfect
exciting.
segue, I think, talking
tell.
about applications to the Starbucks Target discussion about paying for your Starbucks at Target with your iPhone by just flashing your iPhone. So this was news this past week that Starbucks, the mobile iPhone application, can be used to buy your coffee at a Target location that sells Starbucks, obviously, but that you just flash your, using this app, you flash some sort of barcode up and Target's readers can read it at, what was it, Peter, 1,000 locations?
Yeah,
1,000
I think it's
Targets?
1,000 Target locations with Starbucks inside them.
Exactly. So I personally, I mean, this in and of itself isn't all that exciting. I'm just interested to see where this is going to go as far as point of sale purchase and iPhones, because there have been things going on for years now that haven't been adopted widely in the United States, from thumbprint scanners to universal card scanners, that people just aren't, I don't know, we're not picking up on it. So I'm interested to see if an iPhone app is more friendly to people, that point of sale checkout will be handled without an actual card in the future.
Right.
And who's going to get it right?
It's one of those things that it's been feeling like we've needed to catch up. I mean, it's been years since I've been to Asia, but what I hear now is for years you've been able to pay at vending machines with your phone. Why is it taken so long for us to get past that veil of cynicism, or at least approach the veil of cynicism to get to that point? And again, now I don't the same argument. I don't think it has anything really to do as much with the iPhone, but with developers being willing and retail outlets being willing to take that next step. One of the great companies in this space that's in a private beta right now is Square. It's another iPhone application. You can find information about them at squareup.com. And for, I think it's a couple of bucks, you buy this little tiny Square dongle that you plug into your headphone jack. And the dongle it's a card reader, a credit card reader. And with the free Square app and a free Square account, you can take credit cards on your iPhone by just sliding it through the dongle and having your the payer just sign their name with their finger. Right on
Does
your
it link
iPhone.
to your bank account? Is that how they're doing it?
I'm not sure the details. I've signed up for an account to get some more information when they start expanding the beta, but I still have not been granted the account. My understanding is it's essentially like a PayPal sort of a thing. They take a little cut. That's what pays the service, but you don't have to have a merchant account. You don't have with a bank, which can be very expensive
and a huge pain in the butt to get. I will tell you, those card readers are a big pain.
Yeah.
Huge.
For a small business,
and expensive.
Think about farmers markets. Think about these kinds of small businesses that galleries and shops that they could save a lot of money and be really sort of more flexible in customer service.
Or marketing consultants that occasionally their clients want to pay them with credit cards.
That's right. Not to put too fine a point on it. I think it's a fascinating development, but it's one to keep an eye on, and we'll watch. And you guys, I mean, if you have a Target with a Starbucks, go use it. I don't know where the nearest one is.
I don't think I do either. I'm telling you, I think they're all in the Southeast.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's what we have. What's our next story? It's a Google story.
I think Dane should talk about this story.
All right, Dane, you should talk about it.
I don't know much about it, but it is April Fool's Day. So that's the starting point, right?
Right.
And Google today has renamed Google. If you go to google.com, the Google logo is now Topeka, which is as in Topeka, Kansas. And the reason for that is, as many people I think know, Google is currently looking to select, I don't know whether it's a city or certain cities. I don't think they've made any mention on how many that they might select, but places to create super high-speed bandwidth. Apparently, America is actually quite behind in comparison to a lot of other developed nations and even some undeveloped nations in terms of the bandwidth that the average user has access to. So higher bandwidth is good for Google. It's good for advertisers. It's good for content developers. It's good all the way around in terms of moving the web forward. So they want to sort of force competition, force the hand of some of the semi-monopolies, I guess, in certain markets, and create some movement towards greater bandwidth speed. So cities are lining up and doing everything that they can to get picked by Google. And Topeka, in a little not a gambit, but whatever.
A PR stunt?
A PR stunt. There it is. Thank you. It's the snow. We have snow here today. In a PR stunt, they changed their name. The name of Topeka became Google for a day. So that kind of went and whatever.
It made
was
national
probably
news, though.
big news in Topeka, but I'm not
No,
sure
it
where
made
else.
No, it
national
made
news.
national news.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's not the same as tattooing a online casino on your forehead, but
Did you do that,
one,
Dane?
no, that happened in Utah though. Woman got 10 grand for that. I'm sure.
Good for her.
Oh,
I'm sure it bought her meth for about a year, I think. Anyways, sad side note. So anyway, Google for April Fool's Day is Topeka, and great for Topeka, right? I mean, Megan was just all like, wow. As PR moves go, and Megan's brain works this way, PR, look what happened here. Topeka, even if they don't get selected, they now are on the map in a lot of ways, because the whole idea for a city like Topeka to get higher bandwidth isn't, wow, we want our teenagers to play more online video games. The idea is we want business to relocate here, and we want business to see us as progressive and internet friendly and having a great infrastructure. So even just the fact that Topeka has put their foot forward and said we desperately are wanting that and moving in that direction, I think says, to maybe a few companies, okay, so Topeka's not asleep.
Well,
they're at least thinking in this direction, right? There's some benefit there.
Well,
I'm impressed with the fact that not only did Google change its logo today, but when you click on the Topeka logo, as Peter astutely figured out, you go to the Google blog, and they have changed their signage on campus to Topeka for the day. And I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Sorry, I'm just excited about it. I think it's it's funny. I mean, they've got this proper Topeka usage. Before our blind date, I did a Topeka search on him. Before our blind date, I Topeka'd him.
The best one is the last one. I Topeka'd him with Alta Vista. That's a non-example. Don't ever do that. That's awesome.
That is hilarious.
That's just awesome publicity for them. So not only do they have the original publicity stunt of, hey, we changed our name to Google. When was that? That was, gosh, I feel like that was last year. No, last month. Sorry.
Yeah, last month.
So not only did they have that national news, now they have Google reciprocating on April Fool's Day. I just think it's great.
Well, so the ultra high speed the requests are closed. Google is reviewing them, and I'm sad to say that it doesn't look like there were enough requests from any of the Portland suburbs to really make it on the map. But you can really see there's a map. If you look at the, I'm trying to look up the page. We'll put it in the show notes. You can actually go see the map of responses by the number of people. It's a little bubble chart by the number of people from each geography, and you can see, like in the Midwest, there are a lot of really significant community and government responses too that want to be a part of this. So anyway, it says a lot about the need for high-speed internet. So I think it's
very cool.
It's looking good right now. Now I think we need to dig into our interview. And it's a little bit special. We had we did this interview last night because our guest couldn't be here today. Dane, do you want to talk a little bit about our guest? He's sort of your compadre, right?
Yeah, and I can't wait to get into the interview. Dave is an old friend of mine. He and I met. He actually was. I met him one night when I was in high school, or it was like right after high school, and I played in a band, and my girlfriend came to the show, and I wondered who this guy was that was trying so desperately to pick up on her. And it was Dave Olsen. So that's how we met. We met because he was really kind of annoyingly trying to pick up on my girlfriend. We both laugh about that quite a bit now. But anyway, we had a great day. His brother is Bob, and it was always like Bob and Dave, the Canadians, as in Bob and Doug,
right.
Which they played that joke really well back then. So really fun guy. We've had a great history together, and he's very, very active up in Vancouver, BC, in the social media community and new media, and has been for quite some time. Back going, I don't know how far back, 10, 15 years ago or something, to Olympia, Washington, when he was involved with an ISP there and some other things and web building businesses. So, and currently is the marketing director for HootSuite. So he's and last show did a little piece from South by Southwest for us. So hopefully we can have him on a few other times. Dave does a whole lot, has a lot of different podcasts running, and it really is just incredibly active. So, he's kind of an inspiration as far as taking real advantage of the opportunity to get your voice out there and yours and or your organizations.
He is. It was a terrific interview, and I'm sorry to say Megan was at a basketball game and couldn't actually be a part of it. So this will be news to you too.
I know. Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, he was great. So with that, take it away, Dave Olsen and Pete and Dane. I'm a little bit starstruck, and I know, Dane, you are equally starstruck because we, as geeks, we are big fans of the tool that our next guest represents. We've got Dave Olsen. He is the marketing director for HootSuite, our new very favorite social media tool. Am I right?
You're right here. I'm super excited to have Dave on, but I have a hard time being starstruck by the man.
Oh, that's good. Let's start by insulting him. That's great.
We just go back way too far for that. I've seen Dave naked in too many places.
Oh, now really?
Well, it is the naked marketer, so I guess we can complain. But yeah, it's a treat. It's a treat to be here, guys. I had a great time. Sending up my remarks about Austin and catching up a little bit on your back catalog. And I think it's great what you're doing to really have this discourse about marketing that's a little bit renegade style. So that just suits me fine.
Well, that's perfect, man. That's why we're just thrilled to have you as a voice in the field here. And so we've got a whole bunch of things to talk about, related to what you do and community and Twitter and all those kinds of things. And I don't know, Dane, where do you want to kick it off?
I'd like to kick it off, Dave, if we could maybe talk a little bit about Northern Voice coming up. Up there at the UBC campus in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Is this the obligatory plug? Is that what we're doing?
Well, it's not really a plug. It's really kind of a neat thing. And, I'm not on the organizing committee or doing anything, but, I go around to a lot of conferences. Of course, we just talked about South by Southwest, and I go to Gnomedex every year, and I've been to the TEDx's and stuff. But my favorite conference every year is this little one that's put on by the community up here in Vancouver called Northern Voice. And I spoke at it the last 4 years, and it's kind of where I really kind of like the talk I gave at South by Southwest. I did it first at Northern Voice, so it's a great audience, but there's a great social media scene going on up here in Vancouver. But they're kind of doing a neat thing, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is they're doing some travel bursaries, some travel scholarships for $500 Canadian, which is basically $500 American these days, if you guys haven't noticed.
Yeah, we've noticed.
And so you can $500 and you can get your way up here to Vancouver. The conference itself is very inexpensive, and it's a great opportunity. So if anyone's looking out there and they want to kind of crash course on all this social media stuff, there's some top of the tribe up here in Vancouver, and plus it's about the loveliest city, It's right up there with Portland anyway.
Absolutely. Dave, what makes Northern Voice so special for you? I mean, you as somebody who hits all the conferences and South by Southwest, what really sets it apart? Why is it so special?
I think it's because people are really going all out to do to really prepare and go all out for their presentation. A lot of times when you go to these big conferences, people just kind of have their formula talk, and they've done it 20 times in the last month, and it just kind of gets to be a routine. But this is kind of people coming straight up from the trenches and laying it out. Like last year, the keynote was Stuart Butterfield, who was from Vancouver and started Flickr, and now his time with Yahoo is done. He's back in Vancouver, and he's a bit of an elusive dude, and he came out and spoke because it's a real relatively small, tight community, and people can really feel kind of comfortable to lay it all out there, I think.
Is HootSuite, I assume HootSuite's going to have a big organizational presence there? It's in the backyard there of the company?
No, not necessarily.
Not really?
I'll probably speak on some panels and stuff, but, as a company, a lot of, HootSuite has to, we have a, well, how do I say this gently? Like, we don't spend a lot of money on our marketing, right? We spend a lot of time outreaching to our community, and we spend a lot of time amplifying the media messages about us. But as far as sponsoring events, we support events by going up and contributing and supporting by speaking and stuff like that. But there'll be some of the folks that go down. But you also got to keep in mind that at HootSuite, there's most people are kind of in the crystal cave of solitude, writing code, and aren't really out and about at those kind of things. And so that's kind of my role. And we kind of have a very small contingent of people who are doing things besides building product. It's a very product-specific company.
Sure. Well, I think it sounds great.
And speaking of being in the crystal cave, Dave, I mean, my just to throw this out here is so we can post it and get it in and make sure the folks at Northern Voice see this by their deadline on the 1st. I need to put in my plug for my desperate need here to get a hold of one of these travel scholarships. Being in the desert landscape of Utah, Pete, you're lucky to be in a very vibrant, active community there in Portland. And Dave up in Vancouver, where both those communities have a whole lot of things going on, a lot of ways to connect. Just this vibrant community of social media. In Salt Lake, we just don't quite have that. There I am in Utah, and I'm dying to get up there.
Man, doing hard time.
Just trying to get back to the land of milk and honey, baby.
Yeah. Well, all I can say,
Dan,
Dan,
social community is minimal.
Consider yourself endorsed by me to be a fine candidate for the Northern Voice Travel Scholarship. I think you'd be a fine addition to the conference because you certainly aren't shy about running your mouth out about opinions in public. So I know that much. So I think that alone will make you a fine candidate for attendance.
And however much I need to talk about, how poor I am, I guess. We don't have to go into details, but I'm a poor man.
Minimum wage in Utah is still $3.35 an hour, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. We're not on the Northwest plan.
And that's for school teachers. Yeah.
Right. So enough about me, I guess.
A ringing endorsement for Northern Voice.
And you know what, Pete? I think that segues. You had before we brought Dave on, something you wanted to really discuss. I thought it was a great place to start with, Dave, is just that whole discussion about community.
Yeah, I'll tell you where this started for me, and why I think this is just perfect for you, David. I had coffee with another photographer in town today, and we were talking social media, and she had this really interesting kind of take on it, that she has her business, which is one entity, and she has her personal life, which is another, and the direction of our conversation was, look, I mean, here's your business. And as big brands are sort of saturating the market with so much paid media, even in a flagging economy, the messages that stand out and the businesses that stand out are those that really are reaching for this new level of intimacy with their clients. And that it's my impression. I'm interested in your take on it. What is the importance of community for businesses right now, and for developing these new tools and new ways to communicate?
Well, I think it really comes down to culture. And for a company or a brand or an organization or whatever you want to call it to be successful, there has to be a culture developed around it. And the culture is only a culture if it's operating and going on without you being involved in it. So you have to give up a significant amount of control and treat your customers in an entirely different way than you did traditionally in business, where there was kind of a distant relationship. And you do have to, intimacy is a good word, but because it implies the risk that companies feel about revealing too much of themselves, giving a little bit of leeway, and letting people see into the company a little bit more. And it's a little bit disconcerting for companies, but at the same time, everyone's learning now that if you're not paying attention and not participating in the conversation, it's going to go on anyway, and you're just going to lose control over it. So at a minimum, companies have to be prepared to acknowledge the stuff that something's going on, and at a minimum, start paying attention to what people are saying about them online.
Now, tell me a little bit about your role at HootSuite in this regard. I mean, you say that Hoot doesn't spend a whole lot of money on marketing. That puts an awful lot on your shoulders, and so how do you build your strategy
relatively
there?
Speaking, because I see what other companies are spending down at for these things. Our strategy is very different than that. But yeah, go ahead with your question.
Well, that was the question. I mean, how do you go about building your marketing strategy around getting the word out about this incredible tool? As an example, the same person I was having coffee with today, the first thing she said was, we were talking about Twitter, and I said, really the utility of Twitter has gone up since I started using these better tools. And she said, yeah, I just downloaded this new one. What's it called? HootDeck, I think. No, it's not HootDeck. It's not HootDeck.
Someone should register that domain now. Quick, get on that one.
It's a good idea.
Seriously, right? So,
first of all, and I kind of alluded to this talking about the developers. For me, while I've only joined the company in the last quarter or so, I was beta user from the first week of the product, and I knew they were onto something special. Because for me, working in the trenches with other internet startups, I realized the importance of following along at everything and knowing everything that people are talking about you. And by diving into that conversation, you amplify and kind of reflect. By talking about other people, you reflect the glory a little bit back on yourself. And so really where I put my efforts is where my core skills are, which are copywriting and media outreach. And I go out there and I tell the story, and I make the story. I find the bits of the story that are interesting to tell for other people, and that makes it easy. And then I make it really easy for them to tell that. I have a great media kit. Press releases aren't written like press releases. They don't have the obligatory "I'm really excited" quote by the CEO. Half the thing isn't about us; it's all about our customers and what this will do for them. There's tons of fans who make videos and instructional videos and stuff. I go and talk about them and comment about them. Every time a company or a blog or a newspaper writes about us, whether it's some up-and-comers blog or the Wall Street Journal, we acknowledge them and we outreach to them and thank them for hanging out and expressing their opinion. Even the people who have strong opinions that that might not be entirely positive, we try and engage with them. And so it's a lot of one-on-one engagement and amplifying the success stories and also really framing and telling the story. But again, the developers, they're making this awesome tool. So I've marketed a lot of internet kind of products, and this one's by far the most fun because it's the right idea and it's something that people really want. So that obviously makes my job way funner.
Yeah, I imagine it's more fun than steak knives.
Yeah,
it's nice to market a product that works.
Yeah, and I've been doing nothing but marketing web stuff since I first saw the internet in the summer of 1995 on the island of Guam. The day Jerry Garcia died, the next day I was at a class learning about the internet, and because I see the new thing now that couldn't follow the Grateful Dead, and since 1996 I've been doing nothing but internet marketing professionally. And really, it goes back to the same core things I've done with every job I've had, going back to my first one for a local ISP in Olympia, Washington, where we put on great user appreciation parties every year. And just by having those one-on-one touches and showing people a good time and acknowledging the fact that they're providing for your livelihood and your existence is incredibly powerful, more so than giving away little plastic tchotchkes at South by Southwest, which was just companies spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on plastic crap to give you, where we took a very different approach, and it was all about building relationships, finding out what people need, seeing what we can do to help them, and truly acknowledging the fact that they're part of our culture and contributing to it.
I love what you're saying there, Dave, because this really kind of points to the what we try to keep a somewhat consistent theme with the Naked Marketer Show is, there are these great tools. There's this fascinating, wonderful world of new media, and there's a whole lot to learn and a lot, for companies and to sort of revamp their marketing strategies and get involved and get their website promoted. And in a lot of ways, it's a whole new world, and there's a lot to learn. But in other ways, it's the same old thing, and it always boils down to relationships and the things that have always worked. We're just using new tools to make those things, to apply those things. They don't make up for relationships. Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
And really, when I see all this new stuff that we call new media and blogs or whatever, right? Like for me, ever since I was a kid, I've made Ditto Machine newsletters, punk rock fanzines, poetry chapbooks. And Dane can even attest to some of this stuff that we did back at a forsaken community college years ago as underage high school dropouts. It was always up to some kind of arts and crafts. In fact, we started. Should I tell them about our club that we started at
the Long Hairs Club.
Yeah, we.
This is rich. I can already
as
tell.
You might expect, Utah's a pretty conservative environment, right? And we found at our community college that you could get there was student funding that we were all paying into every quarter for student activity kind of stuff. So to get access to this funding and access to the school facilities, because we saw the religious student clubs getting access to all these facilities, like, why can't we use this? And they're like, well, you got to do this club. So we jumped through all the hoops and went through all the process to start the Long Hairs Club. You didn't have to have long hair, but we had the booth set up in the thing, and we.
But Dave had the longest hair on campus.
And we had this whole initiation ritual that people had to go through in the hallway, and they had to pay us like $5 or something to join the club. And there was no benefit for joining the club except you got this awesome certificate, and you got this little, like a little beaded wristband or something.
Yeah, we did red, golden, and red, gold, and green beads on a leather wristband, and we had to shake them with the left hand and whip them over the shoulder with a horsehair.
And there's nothing to it except people want to belong to stuff, right? I mean, this goes back to, building this culture where if you have some message and some interesting story, people want to be part of that story. And so our story was that we were the non-religious, the one non-religious student club, and it was more of a statement and saying that we're here and we're doing something different than it was that they were expressing affinity for some sort of greater belief that we weren't espousing.
And I think if I'm right, Dave, if I remember right, the thing that the student body presidency got so excited about was just the fact that, wow, a social club that's not a religious club.
Yeah,
we're diverse.
Well, but just a social club. Like, hey, we're trying to do that. Like, we'd love more social clubs on this campus. They're not happening, and you guys are taking a funky approach, but it's what we need. And the other thing we figured out, on top of what Dave's saying about people wanting to belong, which is, what an amazing core principle to grab a hold of and understand and utilize. But the other thing is, as they belong, if you're the person that's helping register these people, and some of them are a lot prettier than others, so some women.
Yeah, well, now the truth comes out.
Put a little star next to their name, and then they're the first to be called for activities. So
yeah.
You guys launched profiling. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. And,
we had some great.
But we did it in the Xerox culture, and I worked at the school library, so I could get access to the Xerox copier. And really, everything that we do for marketing now using these web tools, it's just cheaper and easier and more trackable. Because now, when you go out and have a rock and roll band and you put posters around, you put in a listing on the Arts and Entertainment Weekly, you tell your friends, but you didn't know where the people actually showed up. You didn't know how they got there. Now with web, you can know exactly where the people clicked, how they got to that place. You can find out everything about your customer base or the people who are coming to your site or whatever. So it's a whole other thing, and it's free or cheap. You don't even have to pay the 5 cents a copy anymore. It's cheaper than that.
And the next step, if you're doing it right with that information, is instead of just saying like, wow, hey, we got this data, cool, is to say, this is our audience. Let's understand our audience, and let's, now that we know a little bit more about where they came from and who they are, let's do something to reach out to them and take that next step, sort of coming back. It's sort of like you take the listening and, you instead of just speaking out, part of the process now includes a lot more listening to your audience and being able to connect.
I think that's a really interesting point, Dane. I mean, it gets back to what Dave just said a minute ago, this idea of storytelling, which is, I think the world at large is probably more interested in stories about how people are using your product than about you telling people how to use your product.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And this a great example of that is Wall Street Journal called us, and they're like, we want to talk about small businesses using social media for good or having success with it. And so I pointed them to a couple of our customers, including John Fluvog Shoes, the shoemaker up here in Vancouver. And they talked to Wall Street Journal, had a great write-up in the Wall Street Journal, and talked glowingly about us. So because they're the ones out there in the forefront, they're loving the attention, and we're able to, rather than saying, oh, yeah, we're a great tool, what an awesome thing we are, we have a customer out there saying, this is what we've used it for, and this is the success that we had with it.
So let's, we've got a lot of people who, of the 5 people who listen to the show, Three of them.
Don't sell yourself short.
I want to have you talk a little bit to the folks who don't live online as many of us do, because as we said, using the right tool for the right job, it's important not to get jaded by all the new shiny web 2.5 things. But how could you translate all of what we're talking about and help people make that transition, help organizations make that transition if they don't necessarily live online? They're still using a traditional ad or marketing channel approach, and how do they engage their customers in an authentic way if they don't know how to use the web?
Well, I think it starts from. Have you guys ever seen the old Canadian movie Strange Brew, the Bob and Doug McKenzie movie?
Yeah, I've seen that 1 or 1,000 times.
Yeah, maybe 32
One of the most
So remember the part
classics.
of that where Brewmaster Von Smythe, whenever he's feeling down, he says, "Light up the map."
Right.
Right. And so he wants this thing that is like a quick representation of success or a quick representation. They want that instant feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are using these traditional marketing channels. Right now, they're not really able to measure stuff, but they get a charge from hearing their golf buddy say, "Oh, yeah, I drive by your billboard every day, man. I think of you every day. That's great. Oh, I heard you're out on the radio." So a lot of their reaction is anecdotal, right? But what I think that is a really great way for people to understand, because when they get a report that says we had 300 mentions of our company this week online, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's 300 just a number. So I think you got to light up the map for Brewmaster Von Smythe and show some kind of feed. One of the cool tricks that you can do with HootSuite that people don't know, and I just haven't really had a chance to talk about it much, is if you go to hootsuite.com/feed/whatever, alpacas, naked marketers, whatever, it will just give you like a kind of a continually streaming ticker of all mentions of that tag. It's like just a big giant column of them. But if you put that on people's screens, if they don't know anything about the web, they don't care, they don't even have an email address, if you put that up there with their brand name, and they want to sit there and watch that for 10 minutes and see all these people are out there talking about their customers, about their company, that's not 300 anonymous digits. That's 300 people who are expressing an opinion. And you can't help but to have an emotional reaction to that. And also, from a business standpoint, anyone who's in the position of business influence should realize immediately that not only is the word-of-mouth marketing, that's really important, but people out there talking about your company, if you have someone out there participating, that can be thwarting all sorts of public relations disasters. So I think by breaking it down to the simplest parts and showing this is what people are saying, and then, sometimes when I do demonstrations for, presentations, I'll say, just put in your company's name, and great, oh, look at what all these things are saying about our company. That's really interesting. We can see that. And you say, well, forget that. You can now put in your competitor's name, see what they're all saying about your competitors. Now, let's say you want, you're in the alpaca llama business, and you want to search for anyone who's saying the words alpaca and feed in the same Twitter message or whatever. And I don't know how much traffic there is on this, so I don't know how good an example it is. But all of a sudden,
but it's a great example.
Each of these is a new prospective customer, and they're out there talking about this thing I'm passionate about. So a lot of times people start on Twitter, and they go add a few people, and then they're like, none of my friends are here. What's this? And I tell people, don't follow people, follow topics. Just put in search words that you're interested in, and you'll find all these communities, and that's the people to follow. Don't follow your people just because you know them in real life. Those aren't the people to follow. You want to follow people who are into obscure 18th century Russian literature that live all over the world, not in your neighborhood. That's the whole reason you're online, is to meet people outside of your neighborhood, probably.
All right. First of all, I'm looking at this hootsuite.com/feed/foo, and it's awesome. It's like practically magical. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool little hack, and I just haven't. I guess I should give it a name and tell people about it more.
Right.
But when we go to conferences, we're doing another event here in Vancouver, F5 Expo next week, and Malcolm Gladwell, who's secretly Canadian, is coming to speak. And
nice.
But we're sponsoring the feed for that. So at each of the presentations, we'll have that just tracking the back channel hashtag for the conference.
That's wonderful.
And as well as in each of the panels, they'll have a unique hashtag that HootSuite feed will then just flow through, and people can watch it on the big LCD monitors. And when you see people in the audience do it, when you know your message is going to be up there and part of the conversation, sort of part of the public record, then all of a sudden it's fun.
Sure,
And
sure.
at conferences now, it used to be rude to be like, oh, all these people are looking down at their phone, they must be bored. No, if they're looking down at their phone, it means they're twittering their friends going, man, I'm listening to a great panel, or
Right.
this guy sucks, or whatever. And, and you guys have likely been to enough conferences to know that the back channel can really becomes part of the presentation. It's sort of like this narrative voice.
Right.
It's like the voiceover. It's like a voiceover soundtrack to the talk itself. Well, Bob's struggling a little bit here, but he made an interesting point about monetization. And oops, he just said the word synergy. Everyone drink.
Well, all right. So
Dave, you know what I love about what you're saying, and I just want to jump out here with this real quick, Pete. But you're talking about getting out in front of crisis management, essentially, like preempting that with this community engagement and going after I guess topics and communities and building that way. And I'm thinking, like I've taught college level PR courses before and marketing classes, and the PR class I taught was a little while ago, a few years ago, and it was really kind of like, it's a developing, evolving field. It had nothing about social media in there, but the whole history of
you might as well scratch that whole thing then.
Oh, completely. But the whole history of PR, from the textbook standpoint was, well, it started as crisis management. PR as an occupation or as a career it really developed out of companies needing to manage crises, and there's whole chapters on it, and there are still companies, I think, where lawyers might be involved somewhere in that whole PR department, and it is all about control the message and manage the crisis, and this is really just the light years ahead of that thinking.
What really is so beautiful about it, and I think if at least for me, if you could encapsulate it in this one message, what I hear you saying, Dave, is that there is a discussion going on about your brand somewhere. Yep. Someone is talking about you, and it is your job really to do due diligence and enter that conversation some way.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're really selling yourself short, and at the root of capitalism, you're doing your shareholders a disservice by not being out there participating in the conversation, or at an absolute minimum, knowing everything that's being said about your company. And I don't mean getting Google News alerts. I mean actually using tools, and there's great free tools out there where you can know every nuance and every bit of conversation going on in the web. So at least you have all the information, so you can be prepared to respond or prepared to participate when needed.
Well,
However,
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. When you've done your job at community building and building your culture best, before you even have to do anything, people have jumped in and diffused and discussed and done a lot of the trench work for you. If someone's talking, how do I say this gingerly? When someone's talking smack about your company out there publicly, if you've done your job right, people will be chiming in on your behalf. And so again, you don't have to go in and be talking about yourself. Other people are doing it for you. But you have to at least at a minimum be aware of what's out there, because without intelligence, you're totally dead in the water.
We are we're running up to the end of our time here, but you mentioned that there are some great tools that you use and techniques that you use to keep in touch with that discussion that's going on about HootSuite and that you've used in your career. I would love it if you'd share some of those with our audience and let's talk a little bit about how you use them.
And Pete, can I just and I think that one of the contexts that for your question, Dave and I talked about this a little while ago. In communicating with Dave over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that email is a very ineffective way to get a hold of Dave. He's doing almost all of his communication through Twitter, and not just direct messaging, but wide out in the open. Personal conversations are happening for Dave anyway. Really in a public space, and the way to get a hold of him, it really is through using Twitter. And I think it's the only guy I know who's doing it that way. So, so tell us how that's happening.
Very interested in that, how that's working for you.
Okay, well, I'll start with kind of my little recipe for putting up listening dashboards. And really one of the masters of this craft is another Portlander. Amber Case has strong kung fu in this area, so I'll give a nod to her. But at the bare minimum, people put get the email alerts of Google News alerts, but that's just barely scratching the surface. So what I do is I go to a few different search tools, including Social Mention, socialmention.com, which scours like the deep forgotten corners of the internet that people forgot about, things like forums, comment strings, guest books, stuff like that, where there's a huge amount of traffic that still goes on in those things. And I aggregate searches from those because they'll both for the company name, popular misspellings of the name. HootSuite is very popular. HootSuite, like the candy, is very popular of a misspelling. Plus different key phrases that we use to market ourselves, social media dashboard, for example. And I'll aggregate a whole, like a dozen different search strings in there and different search parameters. Then I do the same thing in Google. I do the same thing at a few other places, depending on what I'm looking for in particular. And then I put together basically a tab full of a bunch of little panes of searches from all these different corners of the internet. I'll do search specifics in Dig, and I'll grab a feed for the HootSuite tag in Delicious, in Flickr, everywhere that I can create a feed that might have something to do with it. And I aggregate those in a netvibes.com little dashboard view. And it's another free tool. They have a paid model as well, but it's a free or cheap resource, just like I like it. And I'll put together a bunch of different tabs in there. One, I'll be listening to just stuff that we're putting out there to see the reaction to it, comment threads, our own kind of Delicious feed and Flickr feed and those kind of things, YouTube comment feeds, everything I can get my hands on that I can make an RSS feed out of it. Sometimes I'll even take this to another level, and this is a hack worth explaining, so I'll just take a second to explain it. During the Olympics up here in Vancouver, I organized a kind of a social media project called True North Media House. And as people would submit their feeds and register for this project, they would submit their feed, and I didn't even take an email address from them because, which I'll get to in a little bit more in tune with Dane's question, we'd take their feed and we'd aggregate all those feeds into a Yahoo Pipes feed, and then stick that Yahoo Pipes aggregate feed into HootSuite through the RSS integrator. And then from there, we would send that out through a Firehose Twitter account. So it was different than the conversational account. This was just kind of a raw news feed of everyone who is accredited by True North Media House, which is about 150 bloggers. All their content, whenever they would update something, it would go out to this feed, and then it would send a Twitter message out there on Twitter. And then it would also go send the same message to WordPress.com, to free WordPress.com blog. So, because as you know, that Twitter doesn't really archive or keep your content around for more than about 50 tweets, which again, as I'll get to in Dane's question, is about a day and a half for me. So all those Twitter messages were backed up on a free WordPress.com blog. So again, that has huge SEO benefits, huge archival benefits, and it's a cool hack so you know everything, have kind of a permanent record of everything that's being said about your company, and it's all done automatically, which is the best way to do it.
That's brilliant.
Now,
I'm so glad we're recording this so I can listen to it 10 times to finally understand it.
That's strong kung fu, and there's people out there making good money just implementing those for businesses. So follow that recipe carefully. Now, as far as Twitter as a communication tool, I've always loved postcards, and I've traveled around to like 22 countries. I've worked in most of them, and I'm not like, I don't go to them as a tourist. I'm usually go there with a one-way ticket and very little money just to up the degree of difficulty for some reason. And all along the way, I've written postcards. So I love short-form communication. I love Japanese haiku form. I love the immediacy of a message encapsulated down to its bare elements with, all the just the raw bones, just, all the tendons and sinew stripped away. So email carries with it a little package of obligation and insistence, and it's something you have to sit down and respond to. And as soon as you know how it is with getting stuff done, it's like you look at an email, oh, okay, I'll get back to that, and you sort of ferment that a little bit. Oh, I got to set it there. I end up with, 14 different accounts, and they're all managed here, there, and everywhere. There's personal stuff, there's professional stuff. I'm on the road. Do I really want to download this? And so Twitter, because it has that immediacy to it, where I can get the response down to an elemental, basic chunk of information, it builds in a tremendous amount of efficiency, and part of this is practical for me because there's a tremendous amount of communication I deal with on a daily basis, and there's a lot of people, again, to sort of put it gingerly, vying for my attention and trying to get through to me. And Twitter, I'm able to respond and triage those things really quickly and efficiently. And again, we eat our own dog food at the company where, HootSuite's always open in front of me, and I can bang out a response in less than a minute that has some sort of meaning and keeps the tennis match going. Whereas an email, I have to, it's a switch for me, and it's just sort of fallen down the wayside to about the third best way to get a hold of me, and definitely the one you're going to wait the longest on. And then the other thing I like about posting so much on Twitter, which goes a little bit to my frustration about Twitter's lack of archiving and stuff, but that's a whole other topic. But rather than keeping in touch with a whole bunch of different people, I can both allow people to come along with me a little bit on my adventure, and this, I built up a big following with my podcast who get audio documentation of my adventures, but this allows them to kind of come along in my back pocket a little bit and kind of know what the day-to-day thing is really like that I'm doing, and also kind of notes to a future self. Some people write diaries or journals or whatever. This is just kind of my little annotations to a future self. And I do that kind of stuff in lots of different forms, random camera phone pictures, podcasts, Twitters, blog posts. There's all these little artifacts that I sort of leave behind. So this is just sort of another set of artifacts.
Well,
Wow,
I'll tell
great.
you, it's inspirational, man. You are living out there. It's fantastic. These tools are great, and we'll document those and we'll get them out to our listeners. I think there's, as you said, strong kung fu. We've run our lot of time here, Dave. I feel like we could talk for much longer. I hope you will. I hope you will grace us with your field reports and come back as a guest again. We just really enjoy having you around.
Yeah, it'll be my pleasure. When Dane's up there up here for Northern Voice, we'll be sure to record a special episode of the Naked
Beautiful.
Market.
More than one.
That's right. All right. So before we let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, where can people follow you?
Dave O Hoots. You can follow me for my professional activities through HootSuite, and you can track me down at the blog there. If you want to know more about my after-hours projects, I do a bunch of different podcasts and stuff. You're probably pretty crafty. You can Google me up, and to be honest, because I promote stuff during the day for a living, I kind of under-promote all my personal projects, and I kind of make it a little bit like a web scavenger hunt. But once you find it, you'll know that it's like the A-team. They won't find you unless you really need it. So I'll just put in my name and whatever you're interested in, except for alpacas, because I don't have anything about alpacas. So let's say you're into like longboard hockey. Just put in my name and longboard hockey, and you'll find something. Or ice hockey, or renegade stories from Belize, and you'll find something. So I think I like people to find stuff by the topic, and rather than for my persona, but certainly for HootSuite, I'm out there running the blog and talking on the Twitters, and we love to hear from people. So.
Well, it's fantastic. We cannot endorse HootSuite enough as a tool. It is a social media tool of choice. Mostly, it's innovating so quickly. I mean, there's constantly new stuff to do. Definitely check out HootSuite and check out Dave O'Hoots on Twitter. Dave Olsen, marketing director, and more importantly, community wrangler for HootSuite.
That's right.
Thank you so much, brother. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks a ton.
Dave Olsen is fantastic. So glad that he was able to join us late last night for that conversation.
It's a sharp young man, that Dave Olsen.
Sharp young man.
And a Canadian, too.
And by the way, David Aaron Thorvald Olsen is his full name.
Oh.
I don't think
he would like that you just said that.
Sure he would. Thorvald? That's the kind of name you want on your license plate.
Well, I mean, good Lord, his initials are fantastic. Dato.
Oh.
Sweet, huh?
All the more, and he's Canadian.
That's what I said.
Seriously. All right. Well, we need to move on to tools. There is a new tool, and this is one of those tools that I think it's really easy for us to go a little bit down the geek side. So we're going to try and stay away from that and make more of an announcement and a recommendation.
That's all it is.
Is that fair? That's all it is.
Very
Dane,
that's all it is.
Take it away. I hereby shut up.
Thank you. Well, no, and that's all I can do here because I haven't used this tool yet. So this was something I found last night, and I thought, wow, why didn't I know that? And I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people didn't know this. But it is possible to add Google Analytics to your Facebook fan page. There's a tool, it's an open source tool called the Facebook Google Analytics Tracker. So I found the information on a website. It's a blog, socialmediaexaminer.com. And they've got actually a very short little piece with graphic images. It's kind of a three-step, is that right? Three-step process. So anyway, it's a little bit of a workaround. It's not something Facebook has launched or that Facebook is doing. And of course, you can get some statistics through your Facebook fan page. I mean, they track a few things, but
and they're good. They're good stats.
Yeah,
Facebook, they're really good stats. They're just
you
different.
might be happy with those stats. Yeah, I mean, they are good stats. So, but this is again just a little bit of a workaround that you can do a couple of things that, again, we're not going to get into here. We're not going to go through the process, and I haven't actually been through it, so I can't speak to having gone through it and what might be buggy about it. But it doesn't look horribly complicated, actually. Looks fairly simple, and you can put the tracking code on your Facebook fan page, and get all the kind of analytics data that you're used to getting through Google Analytics.
So the recommendation is
it's a little bit on the deep end of the of the configuration side. There isn't a lot of just coding. There's a lot of copying and pasting. But just because you want to keep all these little tags and widgets in the right place, the recommendation is go to your web developer, go to whoever is coding your site, and tell them you want to do this. And the reason is, we all know how important it is to have good data, but in my experience, consistent data, and to have all of your tracking in Google Analytics, so you can actually see your Facebook traffic side by side with your site traffic is handy, and at least it's a backup. It's another way to turn that Facebook data on its ear. I think there's a lot of value to doing that.
So there you go.
There you go.
That's it.
Google Analytics for Facebook. And then Peter and I found something really cool this past week because we have a Naked Marketers Skype chat. And I asked Peter, I said, how do you make sure that how do I find that? And he said, I just keep it open all the time. And I thought, that is not going to work for me. So we realized that within Skype, you can bookmark a conversation and then either go back to recent chats or go back to your bookmarked chats. So that's pretty cool. If you have something that runs consistently, you want to be able to see. That's one of the things I like about Skype. You can kind of see, I know I sent that to him on Skype, or I know that we were talking about it on Skype, and you can go back and see pretty, from the onset of the conversation.
Well, and that's what's so great. When you're on Skype, if you're having a chat conversation with just one person, that's one thing, because if you just click on their name again and start another chat, you can go back. Right. But what this is specifically, if you have a chat room, like for us, we have one with Dane and Megan and me, and that room, so anything that any of us chat in there goes to all three of us, even when one of us is offline. And so the next day, you open up Skype and you want to be able to get back to that chat quickly. If you've closed down all your windows, there is a chat menu that says bookmarked chats. And if you have bookmarked those chats, you can get back to opening up the same people that were in that chat and see all of the conversation that was ongoing. And all it is a little button right up at the very top of the chat window that is a book with a bookmark on it. And it seems so obvious that we would have discovered this, and we never did. It's one of those things that totally just jumped out and bit us yesterday. So
so that's
for
fun.
those who use
Thank you for clarifying that.
Skype, that's a great thing to do. I have nothing else, people. This has been a good show.
I don't either.
Well, thank you both for your time. Where can we find you, Dane? In the world?
Dane Christian. Well, I'm in the white pages. So sorry.
Dex. Just
look it up.
Open your kitchen cabinet and go to Dex.
Dane at AOL.com.
Not at all. God, I should grab that though. No, Strike 10 Media is my company's website. I'm on Twitter at AltaDane, and I have a Facebook fan page, which is facebook.com/strike10.
Which will soon have Google Analytics on it.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Right.
Look forward to that. I know, my 12 fans. I want to know.
Track every move. Megan, where can we find you?
I'm at Megan Strand on Twitter, or my blog is encouraged.com, and that's INCOURAGED.
Fantastic. And I am Pete Wright, at Pete Wright on Twitter. Please follow me up. I'm at fifthandmain.com. And for the show, head over to thenakedmarketers.com, and you can find all of our back episodes. There are massive I can't underscore this enough. Massive back catalog of archived shows is right there at thenakedmarketers.com. You can fan us up on our fan page and follow each of us on Twitter. We're always tweeting about the Naked Marketers stuff. So that's what we have. Thank you so much for listening. On behalf of Dane and Megan, I'm Pete Wright. This has been The Naked Marketers.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.